The footage circulating of James Harden and Donovan Mitchell arguing behind closed doors tells you everything about where the Cleveland Cavaliers are right now. This was not just a normal disagreement between teammates. It was the breaking point after weeks, maybe even months of frustration, tension, failed expectations, and now a playoff collapse that has the entire basketball world watching Cleveland fall apart. What makes it even worse is how close they were to taking control of the series. On May 19th, during Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the New York Knicks, the Cavaliers held a 22-point lead in the fourth quarter with less than 8 minutes remaining. They had a 99.9% chance to win. This was supposed to be the moment that justified bringing Harden to Cleveland, the move that was meant to finally push the franchise over the top. Instead, everything collapsed in dramatic fashion. And the biggest...
The entire NBA world is watching it happen in real time. Yo, what's good, fam? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is where we keep it real. No cap, no spin, just straight basketball analysis with the facts to back it up. Make sure you hit that like button right now, because today's breakdown goes way deeper than a bad playoff loss. We're talking leaked footage, superstar drama, a franchise entering crisis mode, and what could become one of the most embarrassing collapses in recent NBA playoff history. Before we jump all the way into this chaos, though, let's set the scene properly, because the full story behind Cleveland's downfall did not start with that argument footage. It started long before the cameras caught anything backstage. Because if you do not understand the full picture of what the Cleveland Cavaliers went through this season, then you cannot fully understand why this situation between James Harden and Donovan Mitchell feels so explosive and almost inevitable. But from the beginning, there were questions about whether the fit would actually work. Both Harden and Mitchell are dominant ball handlers. Both need rhythm, touches, and control of the offense to play at their best. And while things looked solid during stretches of the regular season, cracks slowly started to appear once the pressure intensified in the playoffs.
Brania just reported it, but I think we were all expecting it. James Harden has been traded to the Cavaliers.
The idea sounded perfect. Bring in James Harden, a former MVP, multiple-time scoring champion, and one of the greatest offensive players the NBA has ever seen. And pair his elite playmaking, shot creation, and veteran experience alongside Donovan Mitchell and his explosive scoring ability. Add rising stars Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen to the mix, and suddenly the Cleveland Cavaliers look like a franchise ready to return to championship contention. But this is where the story gets real. Because the moment Harden arrived in Cleveland, questions immediately followed him. Not questions about his talent, his basketball IQ, or what he could do offensively. Everybody already knew he could still put up numbers. The real concern was about something that has followed Harden throughout almost every stop in his career. Chemistry, leadership, and what happens when things start going wrong under pressure. That shadow has been there for years. From the Houston Rockets to the Brooklyn Nets to the Philadelphia 76ers, the same conversations always seem to appear whenever expectations got high and playoff pressure intensified. And now, with Cleveland collapsing in the biggest moment of the season, those same concerns are coming back louder than ever. One issue has followed James Harden throughout his entire career like a shadow: his defense. And now, those questions are no longer just coming from analysts or sports talk shows. They are coming from fans online, reporters covering the team every day, and apparently even from inside the Cleveland Cavaliers locker room itself. Coming into the 2025-26 season, Cleveland was supposed to look like a true championship contender. After Donovan Mitchell delivered an MVP-level regular season the year before and helped the Cavaliers finish with the best record in the Eastern Conference, expectations were through the roof. But almost immediately, things started feeling off. The Cavaliers dropped games they had no business losing, including frustrating defeats against
The Toronto Raptors and the Chicago Bulls. At certain points in the season, they looked far more average than dominant, hovering around inconsistent stretches when people expected them to control the East. Mitchell even addressed the problems publicly, admitting the team's inconsistency had to stop and that the group needed to fully lock in before the season slipped away. And the biggest problem was not just the losses themselves, it was the way Cleveland was losing. Opposing teams began exposing weaknesses in their offensive system. The Raptors, in particular, gave them major problems with aggressive perimeter pressure and athletic defensive rotations that disrupted both Harden and Mitchell. Teams started trapping drives, forcing turnovers, and turning Cleveland's offense into isolation basketball instead of a smooth-flowing system. Possessions became predictable, spacing disappeared, and instead of playing as a connected unit, the Cavaliers often looked like two stars trying to take turns carrying the offense alone. That style did not maximize either player's strengths, and under playoff pressure, those flaws only became more obvious. Still, when Harden arrived at the trade deadline, there was real excitement around the league, and honestly, for good reason. When Donovan Mitchell went down with a groin strain in early March, James Harden stepped up in a major way, leading the Cleveland Cavaliers to a 113-109 win over the Detroit Pistons, and proving he could still carry a team when necessary. Head coach Kenny Atkinson spoke publicly about how important it was for Harden and Mitchell to continue building chemistry before the playoffs arrived. But that kind of chemistry does not magically appear overnight, especially between two superstar guards who had never played together before. Time was already working against them, and as the postseason approached, the warning signs became harder to ignore. Cleveland opened the playoffs against the Toronto Raptors, and even that series became
far more difficult than expected. Toronto was dealing with injuries and inconsistency themselves, including a struggling Brandon Ingram and an injured Emmanuel Quickley. Yet Cleveland still looked uncomfortable offensively. Through the first two games alone, Harden and Mitchell combined for 22 of the Cavaliers' 40 turnovers. Just those two players accounted for more than half the team's mistakes. Toronto's defensive pressure completely disrupted Cleveland's rhythm. Their aggressive double teams and swarming perimeter coverage kept forcing the ball out of Harden's hands, while making Mitchell work for every shot. Harden started getting careless with his passing, while Mitchell grew visibly frustrated as his usually reliable scoring touch began disappearing at the worst possible moments. Coach Atkinson kept trying to adjust the spacing and offensive flow, repeatedly telling the media that Cleveland needed to make smarter decisions against Toronto's trapping defense. But even as the Cavaliers advanced, it was becoming clear that this team still had not fully figured itself out. But for long stretches, those adjustments came far too slowly and far too inconsistently. The Toronto Raptors even shocked Cleveland in Game 6 on a buzzer beater from R.J. Barrett, forcing the series to a Game 7. And honestly, the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers were pushed to the limit by Toronto in the first round already told you something was seriously off with this team. They survived, but it did not feel convincing. Then came the second round against the Detroit Pistons, and if the Raptors series felt uncomfortable, Detroit turned things into a complete nightmare. Cade Cunningham and the young Pistons attacked Cleveland with confidence and energy, pushing the Cavaliers right to the edge of elimination. Cleveland actually fell behind 3-2 in the series before barely recovering. May 19th, 2026, Madison Square Garden. One of the most
anticipated matchups of the entire postseason. And for most of the night, Cleveland actually looked dominant. Mitchell was locked in offensively and defensively. The ball movement looked sharp, and the Cavaliers built what seemed like an impossible-to-blow lead. With less than 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Cleveland was up 93-71. At that moment, ESPN's analytics reportedly gave the Cavaliers a 99.9% chance to win the game. A 99.9% chance to win. Just think about that for a second. The Cleveland Cavaliers were supposed to be celebrating a statement victory inside Madison Square Garden. Instead, everything completely unraveled. And that is when Jalen Brunson found his target. Because this is the part of the story sitting at the center of all the tension between James Harden and Donovan Mitchell right now. The New York Knicks did not come back just because they got hot or started making lucky shots. They came back with a clear, calculated game plan designed to attack one specific weakness: Harden defensively. Earlier in the game, Cleveland had been trying to attack Brunson on defense, forcing him into physical matchups and attempting to wear him down. But once the Cavaliers built that massive lead, Knicks coach Mike Brown essentially flipped the strategy right back at them. The message was simple. If Cleveland wanted to hunt mismatches, New York would do the exact same thing.
So Brunson started hunting Harden possession after possession. The Knicks repeatedly ran screen actions involving whoever Harden was guarding, whether it was Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby. Cleveland kept switching defensively, and every single time, Harden ended up isolated against Brunson. And once that matchup appeared, Brunson attacked immediately.
Over and over and over again. In the fourth quarter alone, New York reportedly ran that action 16 different times against Harden, the most any guard had been screened in a single playoff quarter during the modern tracking era. Across the entire game, Harden was targeted in 27 separate screening actions, the highest total of his entire NBA career in one playoff game. And Brunson made Cleveland pay for it in brutal fashion. He scored on 8 straight possessions, attacking Harden directly, turning what looked like a comfortable Cavaliers win into a complete collapse right in front of a national audience. What makes it even worse is that everyone could see it happening in real time. The coaches saw it, the players saw it, the crowd saw it. Everybody in the arena knew exactly what New York was trying to do, and somehow Cleveland never found an answer. Jalen Brunson kept attacking James Harden possession after possession, one floater at a time, one step back three at a time, until that entire 22-point lead disappeared right in front of the basketball world. Brunson eventually tied the game at 101 with just 19 seconds remaining, and from there, the New York Knicks completely took over overtime, outscoring the Cleveland Cavaliers 14-3 to steal Game 1 with a 115-104 win. Harden's final stat line only added fuel to the fire. 15 points, 1 for 8 from three-point range, and 6 turnovers. More turnovers than made field goals, along with what many fans considered one of the worst defensive performances ever seen in a conference finals game. Now, to be fair, because we keep it honest, Harden was not the only reason Cleveland lost that game. He actually hit a huge clutch basket late in regulation to give the Cavaliers a 101-99 lead with 31 seconds left. And head coach Kenny Atkinson deserves criticism too for failing to call timeouts earlier and refusing to adjust the defensive scheme while Brunson kept hunting the same matchup repeatedly. Those are real factors.
But at the same time, the film told a brutal story. The Knicks discovered a weakness and they attacked it relentlessly. That weakness was Harden. What made the situation even worse was the reaction afterward. During his post-game media session, Harden suggested the defensive collapse was more of a team issue, saying it was not a one-man job, and implying teammates needed to provide more help when Brunson attacked. That comment immediately frustrated fans, because the footage showed Brunson beating Harden in isolation before help defenders even had time to rotate. People watching the game felt like Harden was avoiding accountability at the exact moment the team needed leadership most. Then, Game 2 made everything spiral even further. On May 21st, the Knicks dominated Cleveland again, winning 109-93 and taking a 2-0 series lead. Mitchell finished with 26 points, Harden added 18. But by that stage, the damage had already been done. The narrative surrounding Cleveland was set. The confidence was gone, the pressure was exploding, and according to the reports and leaked footage circulating afterward, the tension inside that locker room had officially reached another level. And honestly, the fan reaction to all of this has been absolutely brutal. But looking at how everything unfolded, a lot of people believe the criticism is justified. James Harden and Donovan Mitchell barely had any real time together before the playoffs even started. In fact, they never played a full regular season game together at full strength before postseason basketball began. Harden arrived at the trade deadline in February 2026, and from that point, the two stars only had a few weeks to build chemistry before the pressure of playoff basketball hit. Even during that stretch, Mitchell was dealing with a groin injury, which meant their opportunities to develop rhythm together were extremely limited. And that is where the on-court tension becomes understandable, because both players naturally need the basketball to be at their best. Harden is most dangerous when he is controlling the offense, creating shots, reading defenses, and setting the tempo. Mitchell thrives with the ball in his hands as an aggressive scorer and playmaker who feeds off rhythm and confidence. Both are primary creators. Both are used to being offensive engines. So when the offense starts breaking down, when the turnovers pile up, when the shots stop falling, human nature kicks in. Players start feeling like they personally need to take over and fix the situation themselves.
That instinct is natural, especially for superstar guards who have spent their entire careers carrying offenses. Now add in the leadership dynamic. Mitchell has spent years being the emotional voice of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Throughout the season and playoffs, he repeatedly talked about accountability, consistency, and the need for everybody to stay locked in. Not in a selfish or dramatic way, but in the way franchise leaders usually do when expectations are high. Then you have Harden, a 17-year.
And moving forward to Game 3, Harden spoke about the team responding well in difficult moments. But what people did not see was any real visible chemistry or emotional connection between the two stars. Everything felt professional, controlled, and distant. What makes the leaked footage between James Harden and Donovan Mitchell feel so serious is that it clearly looks bigger than normal competitive frustration. This does not look like two teammates simply fired up after a tough loss. It feels like two stars who were genuinely frustrated with each other about deeper issues inside the Cleveland Cavaliers organization. And honestly, after everything that has happened during this playoff run, it is not hard to imagine what those arguments could be about. Defense, accountability, leadership, offensive control. Who is sacrificing more? Who is carrying the pressure? Who deserves blame for the collapse? Those are exactly the kinds of conversations that happen when a team expected to contend for a championship suddenly finds itself falling apart in front of the entire basketball world. Because beyond the leaked footage and all the social media drama, there is a much bigger basketball question hanging over Cleveland right now. Does the Harden-Mitchell partnership actually work long-term? On paper, the idea makes complete sense. Mitchell is an explosive scorer who can attack off the dribble, create in the mid-range, and score without dominating every possession. Harden is still one of the smartest offensive playmakers in basketball, capable of running pick-and-roll actions, controlling tempo, and creating open shots for teammates with elite passing vision. Theoretically, those skill sets should complement each other perfectly. Mitchell handles the scoring pressure, while Harden operates as the secondary creator and offensive organizer. The Cleveland Cavaliers have come back from a 0-2 deficit before. They did it against the Detroit Pistons earlier in these playoffs, so technically this series is not over yet. But the New York Knicks are a completely different challenge. They are more experienced, more disciplined, and right now they look mentally tougher in every crucial moment. And whatever is happening between James Harden and Donovan Mitchell needs to be resolved immediately, because the alternative could completely change the future of this franchise. Because if Cleveland gets eliminated, the off-season questions become massive. Do the Cavaliers run this core back again? Do they reconsider the entire Harden experiment after only a few months? Does Mitchell, with major decisions looming about his future, start questioning whether Cleveland is still the right place for him long-term? Those conversations are no longer hypothetical. They are real possibilities hanging over this organization right now. And when people look back at how everything started unraveling, they are going to point directly to that Game 1 collapse. A 22-point lead that disappeared. Jalen Brunson repeatedly attacking Harden in isolation. A defensive game plan Cleveland never adjusted to. And a partnership between